Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're looking at Exodus chapters 17, 18, and 19. Exodus 17, there are 16 verses beginning in verse 1. We read here, according to their encampments, according to their tribe is another way to read that. On the other hand, the Masoretic text, the MT, says, after their journeys. So we can see there's quite a difference here. They departed from the wilderness of sin according to their encampments, according to how they were divided, versus according to after their journeys. So that's a little confusing. It doesn't seem to make sense that they journeyed after their journeys. So it's a little repetitive there, but it is more clear in the Septuagint. Verse 2, we see the word revile. Why do you revile me? This is Moses talking to the people, and this is millions of people. Why do you revile me? In other words, why do you verbally abuse me? Why do you scold me? Versus, why do you chide me? Why chide you with me? Chide also means speak in an angry rebuke. Well, it turns out they are similar terms and not too different. It's just expressed differently. In verse 6, we see here the word sons. They did so before the sons of Israel. Moshe did so before the sons of Israel versus the elders of Israel. So we can see it's not just the elders, it's the children of Israel, the sons of Israel. Verse 9, the word mighty is omitted from the from the Masoretic rather. In verse 9, choose out yourself mighty men, not just any men. These are mighty men who are supposed to fight Amalek. You're not going to pick just any regular average Joe. You're going to pick your best. And that's what Moses did. He sent his best, or Yah sent their best, and he instructed Moses to do so. Looking at verse 11, hands, we see your hands. Moses lifted up his hands, not his singular hand. That's an important point to make. In verse 12, we see that it uses the word here, supported. The hands of Moshe were supported till the going down of the sun. But it says in the Masoretic, his hands were steady. No, they were supported by Aharon, and Or. They were the ones supporting his hands. They weren't just steady, they were supported on either side. Looking at verse 13, we see the word routed. Yehoshua, son of Nun, Yehoshua ben Nun, routed Amalek. He routed them. That means he defeated them. Versus he discomfited them. Discomfited means to frustrate or perplex. So you see, Joshua didn't just frustrate them in their minds. He defeated them. No question, he beat them. They were handed defeat. Joshua was then victorious as a result. Verse 14, we see here speak. The word speak, Yah is commanding Moshe, speak in the ears of Yehoshua, of Joshua, or in the Greek Jesus. Speak in his ears, for I will utterly blot out the memorial of Amalek. So in the Masoretic, it is worded as rehearse in the ears of Joshua, where speak is just more direct. It is more simple and clear. There's really it's not open to interpretation. Verse 16 says here, with a secret hand, for with a secret hand, Yah wages war upon Amalek. Versus, because Yah has sworn that Yah will have war with Amalek. It's a little confusing. It is more clear that with a secret hand, he wages war upon Amalek. You're not going to do it openly. You do it in a more subtle way. in order to win, I guess. But there's other ways to interpret that. But it is with a secret hand that Yah wages war. Maybe it's a hidden hand, but anyhow, it is not open, out in the open kind of hand. It is done in a secret way, done in a way that maybe they won't expect it, because Amalek, recall that they are the ones who will or have attacked Israel from behind, and they attacked all the weak, all the stragglers. So that's all for chapter 17. We're going to move on to chapter 18 now. There are 27 verses in this chapter. Beginning in verse 4, we see the word sword versus hand. In verse 4, he has rescued me out of the hand of Pharaoh, versus the sword of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh, I don't believe he drew a sword, but anyway, it just says what it says. I'm reading that. I'm not going to put anything into that, my own interpretation, but that's just what it says. Verse 7, we see here the word reverence. Moshe met with Jethro, his father-in-law, and did him reverence. So he bowed down to his father. That was part of their culture, to bow down. We have many cultures in the East that do the same thing, even to this day. Versus obeisance. So obeisance is what is used in the Masoretic for this verse 7. Did obeisance, we obeyed him. No, he bowed down to him. And they embraced each other. In the Septuagint, they embraced each other. As you can see here, they hugged each other. And the Masoretic says they asked each other of their welfare. So that's much different than hugging somebody, asking someone. It's action versus words. Verse 8 says, out of the hand of Pharaoh. In verse 8, that was omitted in the Masoretic. Out of the hand of Pharaoh. Let me just find it in the narrative. Yah rescued them out of the hand of Pharaoh. And you're going to see this is a mission that is continuously found throughout the narrative. So I won't repeat that one again. Verse 9, we see the word amazed. Jethro was amazed at all the good things Yah did to them, versus he rejoiced. It's one thing to rejoice, but it's another thing to be amazed. An impression was made upon his mind. It wasn't simply an action, it was in his heart and his mind. He was amazed. Verse 11, they attacked them. Wherein they attacked them. Okay, it's worded that way. The Egyptians attacked Israel, versus he dealt proudly above them. So the Egyptians dealt proudly. Why would he save them? Why would Yah save Israel from the Egyptians dealing proudly? It's one thing to exalt yourself over someone, but it's another thing to attack somebody. That's an imminent threat. That means your life is on the line. And that is worthy of intervention. Okay, verse 12. The sacrifices and offerings prepared for / because. So they're prepared because of Elohim, for him, versus, and he just did it. He took a burnt offering and sacrifices for Elohim. So they randomly showed up, meaning not that it was done in advance, that these were prepared for Elohim, but they just randomly performed this because they just knew what to do without having any instructions, but that's not the case. Verse 15, we see here the word, it's expressed, seek judgment from Elohim. So because the people come to me, Moses talking to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to seek judgment from Elohim, versus to inquire of Elohim. Why would you simply inquire of Elohim? There's a reason why you're inquiring. It is because of judgment. 16. Well, he needs help for the judgment. That's what he's saying. Verse 16, dispute among them. Whenever there is a dispute among them versus a matter. So a matter is just any concern, but a dispute is something that really needs careful consideration. You need to look at it carefully. You can't be biased either way. And then a decision has to be made. Right or wrong, you just have to decide. That's part of his responsibility, Moses's responsibility. Verse 17, you do not this thing rightly. The words of Jethro. You're not doing this, you're not judging in the best way, is how I read it. Versus the thing you do is not good. The thing that you do, not good. This could be the literal thing is not good, judging the people specifically, or it could be that it is evil, or it is not good in the way he's doing it. So it can be taken in multiple ways of understanding, but I'm leaning towards that the way he's doing it is not good, because you'll see that Jethro suggests to him a better way of doing it. Not that don't judge them, period. Don't judge them at all. He's saying, do it this way. So that's just the way your common sense leads me to that understanding. Verse 18, intolerable wariness. You will wear away with intolerable wariness. That's omitted in the Masoretic. Hard, the word hard here, it says in verse 18, this thing is hard. Versus it's too heavy for you. Endure it. You will not be able to endure it. Versus you will not be able to perform it. Well, Jethro believes in Moses' ability, that he is the right man for the job, but the way he's doing it is wrong. It's not good, because he won't be able to endure it. It's a hard task. You could do it, but you won't be able to endure it. It's a lot for one man to take over a long period of time. How long do you plan to do this, Moses? So you can see endure it makes more sense. Verse 19, things pertaining to Elohim. Be you to the people in the things pertaining to Elohim, versus toward Elohim. To Elohim word, so toward God. Implying that matters not pertaining to Elohim could be assigned to these subordinates under Moses, these captains that Jethro will suggest, or will suggest in this narrative. Testify in verse 20. You shall testify to them. Declare is another way to put it. Prove. You will witness to them. Versus teach them ordinances. So it's one thing to teach people, but it's another thing to declare, to prove to them, to witness to them. It's more like you're the living embodiment of what you're teaching to them, what you're showing them. You walk it first, Moses. You prove it. You declare it to them. It can be taken in those three different ways there. Verse 21, look out. And do you look out for yourself of all the people able men? So he means search among the people, these men, versus provide. So you shall provide from the people, men. But it's not really him providing, it's Yah providing. But he's the one who has to do the job of searching for these men. Righteous men, it says here in verse 21. This is the qualifications. Righteous men is listed as one of them, versus men of truth. I'm not saying one is superior over the other. I'm just saying the Septuagint is saying righteous men. And some men lie, not all men tell the truth, and some men tell the truth and they lie. There's not a man on the planet that is 100% telling the truth, except for Yehoshua, who was the living embodiment of the truth. He was the truth. So these men are better described as righteous men. Hating pride is another qualification versus hating covetousness. So it's one thing to not be materialistic, but it's another thing to hate pride. Pride is a very serious issue, potentially, and leads to many sins. Covetousness is also serious, but on the echelon of things, I'd say pride is a greater destructive leaven to grow. You don't want that to grow. If you had one or the other, you'd rather have covetousness than pride. They're both bad, but pride is more lethal, more pervasive. It leads to more sin. Whereas covetousness is an issue, but can be dealt with probably much easier. We see the word captains of thousands versus rulers of thousands. You can see our system isn't about ruling over people and pushing them around. It's about being leaders, captains. You take care of people. So they're called captains there. Verse 22, too burdensome. They shall judge the people, and the too burdensome matter they shall bring to you. So it's described as too burdensome versus great. So it's worded much differently. Well, not much differently, but great is big, but too burdensome is more specific, that they can't handle it, Moses, so you'd handle it. It's too burdensome for either the captain or for the people dealing with the issue, with the dispute. It's not a small matter. It's too burdensome. It's not light. Verse 23, Elohim shall strengthen you, versus if Elohim command you. You can see that Elohim command you. No, if you shall do this thing, if Elohim command you. No, he's saying, if you shall do this thing, Elohim shall strengthen you. So he's saying, if you listen to my voice, my son-in-law, God will bless you. He's going to give you the strength to do this. You know, the fifth commandment says, listen to your father and your mother, and your life will be long upon the land. You know, you'll have an extra blessing. And although Jethro isn't technically his father biologically, he's still his father-in-law. So listening to your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, I think that it would extend to them, although in maybe a different way. But regardless, he called him his father-in-law. So why shouldn't that extend to your in-laws, right? Okay. And then we see here attend is another word in 23. And you shall be able to attend versus endure. You shall be able to endure. I think it is pretty much expressing a similar vein of thinking that, yeah, he's going to be able to do this. Attend to it. You'll be able to attend to it. You'll be able to do it. So endure is a little different, but not vastly different. Verse 26, we see here the word light. Every light matter, they judge themselves. So light and weight versus small matter. So just the terminology is different. Verse 27 is the last verse. We're looking at dismissed. Moses dismissed his father-in-law versus he let him depart. Either way, he went off after that record, after that situation. That's all for 18. We're going to look at now at Exodus chapter 19. Contains 25 verses, and we have a little bit to look at here. Beginning in verse 5, hear my voice, if you will indeed hear my voice, versus if you will obey my voice. But know that in Hebrew, to hear is not simply to listen, it is to hear and act on it. Hebrew is a very action-oriented language, so it's not too far off when it says obey. People is the other word here. To me, you shall be to me a peculiar people above all nations versus a peculiar treasure. So you can see they are a people, not just a treasure. Although it's not wrong, but it just says is there a people. Verse 8, hearken, we will do and hearken to. So this is the people agreeing that all things that Elohim has spoken, we will do and we'll hearken. Verses nothing. It doesn't say that. We will. It just says we will do, but not hearken. So they won't listen to it. We'll just do it. But how will they do it if they don't listen to it? But again, Hebrew is a language that's action oriented. Usually, to hearken, to hear means to not just listen or hearken, but to obey. So that matches up with the Hebraic thought. Verse 9, we see here the word pillar. I'll come to you in the pillar of a cloud versus a thick cloud. Verse 10, solemnly, go down and solemnly charge or solemnly command the people. That is omitted. It's not said there to do it that way. In verse 10, it doesn't say that at all. Verse 12, any part of it. And everyone that, nor touch any part of the mountain. Versus the border of the mountain. But it is, I guess that would be a part of the mountain. It's the border of the mountain, or maybe that's around the mountain. But anyhow, it does say part of the mountain. So don't touch the mountain proper. Verse 13, with a dart. They will be killed with a dart. So they'll be shot through with a dart, those who touch it. And the voices, it says, when the voices and trumpets depart from off the mountain. So you will notice that the dart is shot through with the dart is completely omitted. Actually, not shot through. It shot through is mentioned, but with a dart is omitted, and the voices part is omitted as well. Verse 15. This is the title of the video. Come not near to woman. Let's just read the whole verse, beginning in the Masoretic text. And he said unto the people, be ready against the third day. Come not at wives or at your wives. So don't come near your wives. I know in a modern vernacular it's a dirty word, but for the purposes of this video, don't approach your wives. Okay, what does the Septuagint say? I think it brings it up a notch. And he said to the people, Moses did, be ready, for 3 days come, for 3 days, come not near to a wife, no, to a woman, period. Wow. So one is women in general versus those who are husbands and married. So this actually applies to all men and all women. Yahweh's being very careful with his coming, with his arrival. He didn't want them to risk them being killed because he's so holy they couldn't defile themselves. If they did, there's going to be great consequences. So don't even come near a woman. And I think the implication is a woman of a certain age, not just a woman child. I didn't say a girl, notice it says a woman. So this is a woman who's reached puberty, who is sexually developed, and this is instructing the men specifically as well. Didn't say men, but I mean the implication is men. I mean boys can approach a woman because they could be the children, their sons, but a full-grown man, especially one that's not married and a woman that's also single, not married, a virgin, there's a temptation that they would engage in intimate relations. And that was not to be done during this time period only, because Yah would descend in the mountain and the whole game would change on that day. But notice it's only for this specific time in history, not perpetually forever, amen, but just for this specific situation, this specific time that is coming. Okay, so that's the title of the video. I want to go through that and just say, wow, you really brought it up a notch. It is something where men need to be circumspect, need to be diligent, as well as women. They shouldn't be tempting the men either. Verse 16, the word voices is mentioned. There were voices and lightnings versus thunders and lightnings. This could be a synonym or perhaps not, but either way, it is worded differently. We see here the word dark versus thick. Dark cloud versus a thick cloud. Verse 18, the people were exceedingly amazed at the last part of the verse, versus the whole mount quaked greatly. That is a big difference. One's describing the mountain quaking in the Masoretic. Notice it did not quake in the Septuagint. Notice that the people were not exceedingly amazed either. They seemed to be more terrified than anything else. Not that they weren't terrified, but that's not what the Septuagint is actually saying. Verse 19, long is added to the Masoretic text. It sounded long. It just sounded. We don't know how long, but it isn't specified here. It says it was waxing very much louder. So it's describing the volume, not the period of time that it was sounding. So where am I now? Verse 18. Okay, it's read this already. Verse 21. Solemnly, the word solemnly charged the people again. Seems to be a continuous difference. That was omitted in the Masoretic text. And the final verse we're looking at is verse 22. Destroy some of them. Talking about let the priests draw near to Yah Elohim. Let them sanctify themselves, set them apart, prepare themselves, lest he, Elohim, destroy some of them. That's one of the conditions. He's very specific in his instructions. So he's saying this as a warning to protect them so that they're not destroyed, versus break forth upon them. And you'll see that as a continuous difference as well in the narrative. So I won't repeat that one again. That's the end of chapter 19. Thank you very much for your time. Yah bless you and make your way prosperous. This is Jack Knight signing off for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Shalom.
Quickly.